morning, everyone. Good morning and welcome back. And it is a very, very good morning this morning because I'm going to tell everyone the time, Steve. It's 6:15. Well, it's almost a little bit after 6:15 in the AM, as they say. I'm in Bahrain. I flew into Bahrain yesterday. Steve and I are doing the podcast at a slightly different time. Steve had to rearrange all his schedule today for me. So, hi, Steve.
Hey, mate. How you going? It's pretty crazy early for you. You're not a morning person either.
No.
How's that for dedication?
For people that know me when I used to work in a normal job, or even when, I didn't work in a normal job, most people would just avoid me before my second coffee in the morning if it was early.
Yeah.
It was a little bit of a running joke in a place where I used to work, as you know, in Paddington, that people would just basically avoid me. And that wasn't even that early in the morning. That was like 9 in the morning. So people would just keep away. Not because I was going to snap at them, just because I just wasn't really awake. But I tend to, as you know, Steve, I tend to stay awake very late. Like I messaged you last night, and that wasn't really late. It's late UK time. But I'm usually late to bed and late to rise. That's how I like to do it. I still make the most of the day. It's just that I do it on the other end.
You're a better person than I am. I could do the traveling and all that sort of stuff. Anyway.
Yeah, see, Steve, just so the listeners know this, Steve, you're the direct opposite to me, aren't you? You're the direct opposite because you get up at the crack of dawn and you go to bed reasonably early.
Really early.
Yeah.
Really early, yeah. It's kind of, it's been compounded by kids, I suppose. But yeah, so I can't do late nights. It kills me. Anyway.
Getting old, mate. Getting old.
Very old.
So yesterday, before I get into it, I'll just tell you because I haven't really told you about it because we just wanted to start recording. But I hope it doesn't sound too echoey. I'm in a different room today as well.
Oh, sounds fun.
Yeah, so we left London on, what was it, Monday night? What day is it today? Wednesday. I'm trying to work out what day it is. We left London on Monday night. We only flew out at 10 o'clock. It's fine, easy. We flew out from Terminal 2 of Heathrow, and Heathrow is normally where we always used to fly out to go back to Australia because that's where Singapore Airlines fly from. Despite what people are telling you that things have opened up, despite what people are telling you that London is back to normal, it may be back to normal as in, it was a ghost town, Steve. Heathrow, basically there was our flight and 3 other flights leaving from Terminal 2, which is really, really quiet. All the shops were closed at when we were there. So we got there quite early, actually. There was no traffic going to Heathrow in the car. There was nothing.
Yeah.
We get to Heathrow, there's only 3 flights. Our flight, I'm not kidding, I would say it had 30 to 35 people on our flight.
Which I can't believe. How do airlines run? Like, unless you're flying, everybody who's in first or business class, how commercially can they actually make that viable?
Yeah, I really don't know. So 35 people on the flight, really empty. Basically, things are not back to normal. It's all a joke. It's still, world travel, I don't know. I think, Steve, honestly, I think it's going to be, I don't know. I can't see anything changing next year. Can you? I just can't see things changing, especially even with you in lockdown. Your lockdown's going to be extended.
It's really hard for me to kind of get a read on it. Like, I don't travel nearly as much as you and Tash, so I wouldn't really know. I'm not a big sort of worldly type person like that. But in Sydney, we're definitely in lockdown. We're still struggling to see how we're going to kind of get out of this. I think they've sort of changed tack, and it'll be trying to get the vaccine numbers up, not trying to kind of worry about trying to get 0 cases, which is the way that they sort of tackled it all of last year prior to Delta. But I just can't imagine like how they're going to kind of approach international travel again, let alone just even opening up sort of busy areas and shops and concerts and sporting events and all that type of stuff locally.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and we've come back to the Middle East and, we're doing this project in Dubai that opens on the 1st of October. I just don't know how they're going to do it. I can't really say who it was, but we had a meeting the other day and one of the people in the meeting is the head of a very big airline. And they were saying that basically they literally cannot get people to Expo. They literally cannot get people there to the project we're doing because
Yep.
the restrictions. There's just still too many restrictions worldwide, and also a lot of people are still locked down, so it's crazy. Let's get into it, Steve.
Yeah, cool.
I'm struggling to talk, just so the listeners know, because I'm getting really weird feedback in my microphone, and it's very weird for me, but I'll keep going. So, Patreon. I just want to mention the 2 Patreon members that have joined this week. We have Jim. Jim has joined PorscheCooled. I'm not sure what Jim drives. I don't think, Jim, you've reached out to me. If you have reached out to me through Instagram and I missed it, I'm sorry. But you did join Patreon during the week, so thank you for that. The next person, Steve, is Edward. Edward I have spoken to, and Edward has he's going to have a good story, actually. Edward is, he said he's always loved Porsche from his uncle's 924, and now he's basically ordered, Steve, a 992 GTS in manual, and he's still waiting. Cool. Apparently, he ordered it in early January, and he's still got 7 months to wait. It's still 7 months away. I guess
another 7 months from here.
Another 7 months from here.
Okay.
So I guess it must be great that you've actually got your order in. Like, I'd be really excited, but man, it'd be killing me waiting for that long.
Because what happens? Like, where are they now? I wonder, when will the Gen 2 992? Because if you kind of ordered your car, you waited, that'll be about 15 months for it.
Seems that way.
If not long after that, the Gen 2 kind of comes out. There's got to be a little bit of sort of weirdness in that at some point in time.
When does the Gen 2 comes out? If this came out, the 911 came out in what, 2018? The 992?
It'll be 3 or 4, about 3.5 years down the track from the first release, because remembering what Nick Murray said, he said the life cycle of a car is generally, a Porsche is seven years, I think.
But I guess that doesn't make...
Gen 2 comes in about 4.
But I guess if you have a car on order now, Porsche, right, and we know everything's slow, and Edward said that his is going to be still 7 months away. Obviously, Porsche are not making this car. It doesn't take them. It only takes them the amount of time it does to make a car, right? It doesn't take them any longer. It's just that they're delay, right? There's the orders. The work processes are slower, or something's changed like that. I think they still. I don't think it actually takes them longer to make the car on the production line. The time is the time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The time would be the time. It's so factored in, and everything is to the minute detail that the time is the time. So that means when you get your car built, now just say Edward's car doesn't get built, say it takes a month to build or 2 weeks to build. Does that mean if you're on the borderline, you do get a 0.2?
No idea. Absolutely no idea. I'm assuming at some point in time, because they can at least track your order and tell you where you're at. Like, if you're getting close to the changeover from a Gen 1 to a Gen 2, you'd like to think they're going to talk to you about it. But
yeah, because the tooling would change, right? The tooling would change, I guess. So they'd have to do it at a certain point. Yeah. Anyway, thank you, Edward. And thank you, Jim, for joining PorscheCooled. If you wonder what I'm talking about, this is Patreon. You go to patreon.com/PorscheCooled. That's where you can help support the podcast. I think we have 41 patrons, 41 members of PorscheCooled now, Steve. Let's get it to 50. Cool. We only need 9 more. Let's get it to 50. We're up to our 120. What is it? 128th episode is today's episode, for those of you who are counting. So let's try and get the Patreons to 50 in the next in the next month or so. Anyone that wants to support, you can start at as little as $2 up to $10 US. I don't know what it is in other currencies, but Patreon does the changeover for you. Steve, before we get into owner stories, because I want you to have a little say about owner stories this week due to the guests we had. But I just want to touch on Apple ratings and reviews. Last week I forgot to do the Patreon thing as well, just so you know. So that's why I spent a bit more time on it this week. Apple ratings and reviews. I want to talk about these 2 reviews. I'm going to read them out because I know both of these people, and both of these people I know through Instagram. And so I appreciate all the reviews, but I've only got 2. When we've got like 5 or 6, it's really hard for me to read them out. And I told Steve I wouldn't read out reviews anymore, but I'm going to read them out. So Apple rating and reviews, like I said, if you go to Apple, you give us a star rating. If you've got a few more minutes, just write a review. Because of all the guys, Steve, and I said this last week and the weeks before, because of all the guys going out there and giving us the reviews, when I left London, we were 34 on the US chart when I checked it. 34. Now, that's pretty crazy to me that, and I keep saying this, but no offense to any other country, but the US is such a big market, and this is Automotive Podcast. To be number 34 is, for a little podcast that we started out that we thought no one would really listen to, it'd be just me and Steve talking to ourselves. It's quite good, Steve, don't you think?
Yeah, it's cool. Credit to you, mate.
It's weird, isn't it?
You started without me, so don't...
It's weird though, isn't it?
Don't heap your praise on me.
It was nothing without you, Steve. It was nothing. It was just me talking to the wall, talking to myself for 20...
I'm a very regular guest
22 minutes, you're a host. 22 minutes I used to talk on those first episodes. I don't even know how many of the original episodes I did, because I only listened to the episodes when I edit them, so I haven't gone back and listened to the very first episodes. Probably I shouldn't. I did that with one of my YouTube videos the other day. I watched a very old YouTube video. Oh my God. I thought, should I just remove this now? Like, should I just take it off? The thought crossed my mind.
Yeah, it's cool.
Okay, Apple ratings and reviews. I'm going to read these 2 very quickly, Steve. The first one is Friends Talking Porsches. Friends Talking Porsches. I like that title. Michael and Steve bring the genuine passion of enthusiasts, knowledgeable, but still curious and interested. Their casual banter is that of friends hanging out in the garage. I wish I had a garage. You will also enjoy the owners' stories, which are each unique. Thanks to all the people who contact me, that was my little comment, but reflect common themes we all share in the ownership journey. Whether you are experienced with Porsche or new, I recommend spending time with the PorscheCooled podcast. Jim, thank you so much. Jim owns a 1968 Porsche 912. He is at Left Coast 912 on Instagram. Go and look at Jim's Instagram. He's got great pictures. He's got a great car. I repost his images. I like his Instagram, so go and check that out. But thank you, Jim, for the podcast, and that's Lido5110 at United States, but it's Jim at Left Coast 912 on Instagram.
Garage.
Left Coast 912. Go and check it out, Steve, if you haven't. Give him a follow. The next one is the Ultimate Porsche Podcast. This one made me laugh, and I didn't know who this was at first, and now I do know who it is. Michael is the Joe Rogan of Porsche podcasts. I wish. Well, I wish as in financially. I don't know about if I like everything Mr. Rogan says, but I do listen to occasionally to a few of his episodes. Everything from passion, lifestyle experiences, enthusiasts, as well as the Porsche community, all things of the brand Porsche. Now, that is at Porsche Airhead via Apple Podcasts in Canada. A side note on that, Porsche Airhead is Nico. Nico has a brother. Nico's brother is Nigel. Nigel, I hope that was... There's Nigel, sorry, Nigel. And Nigel left a review last week, I think, or the week before. And Nigel is at the _cashmere_beige_911 on Instagram, who's got a great Instagram, got a great car. I'm going to get them, I hope. I'm not sure about together. Nico said maybe we could do it together. I'm going to get them on the owner stories. They've got a really cool story. Their father's been in the Porsche club for over 30 years. The father had Porsches. They've both got Porsches. They both drive 911 SCs. I think it'll be a really cool story. So anyway, I appreciate the review, and I did reach out to him yesterday and thank him for that. So thank you so much. Steve, are you there?
Yeah. I'm with you.
All right.
I'm waiting for that second coffee to kick in.
It's kicking in now. I just sculled one before I came on with you, and now I'm on my second one. Just so the listeners know, Steve just told me how bad I looked this morning as well. So, I turned the camera off for a bit, but I've turned it back on now.
I said you were tired. Don't get all sensitive, mate.
Wait till I start going out and baking in the 43-degree heat around the swimming pool later. Then I'm going to look...
that sounds horrible.
Then I'm going to look tanned, freshed. Going to get my shorts on, my white English tan that I have after a few months in the UK working. All right, owner stories this week, and owner stories was a bit of a special one. And I did say in the description in the write up for the podcast, you've heard the name thrown about the podcast in mostly good ways, no, all good ways, I think. This week we had Marco on the owner story, Steve.
Yep.
Did you listen to it?
My cousin.
Did you listen to it?
I did. You sent it to me in advance.
Steve's cousin-in-law.
Mm-hmm. I learned a few new things about Marco that I didn't really know, because it's sort of some of his car history. I think I've said it to you before. I can't keep up with his collection of older sort of cars. And I knew that he was sort of wrenching on his own machinery before, but I didn't know that he was going to the point of sort of dropping engines out and moving them from one old air-cooled V-dub to another. But I know he's a very meticulous man, so I know that he would, if he wasn't at the beginning, he would become quite proficient in things. Like, I don't think he does things by halves.
So let's get into that a little bit further. But just to lead in for the listeners that haven't listened to owner stories this week, and I know a lot of people when they listen to Friday's episodes, I know some people save it to the weekend; they don't listen to it straight away. And I can see, it's when it spikes, some people are listening to things. But Marco has a 996. He has a 2000 model 996 turbo. 2000 996 turbo in speed yellow, which is a fantastic color. It's got a carbon wing. It's Marco's first 911. But just so the listeners, I'm just going to give a little lead in. It's not his first Porsche. He also has a Cayenne S 2012.
Yep.
I didn't put it in the title of the podcast. I just kept it purely 911. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't, but I just kept it as Marco's car because I want Marco's 911 to be the focus because he's so proud of it and he's so happy about it. And that car he loves. And when I was talking to Marco, the really cool thing was he was in his garage. He has a loft above his garage, and that loft he showed me he showed me the car. He turned the camera around and showed me the car. It looks immaculate.
Again, what I would do for a garage.
Yeah, and Marco had all these.
I'd kill for a garage.
Well, here I am thinking when I'm talking to Marco, and I knew Marco had a few other cars. I wasn't sort of aware of how many cars he had.
Yeah.
And I thought, wow, that's a cool garage. I just like that garage with the little loft and the little thing upstairs. I could have all my Porsche posters that I bought. I could have somewhere to put them. He's got all these model cars. Marco's got that great story that how he wasn't really into Porsche, and then he got a Matchbox car, and then that Matchbox car he actually still has. You know what I mean? Which depresses me when I feel like I used to just smash all mine up and just lose them and whatever.
Yeah,
so,
same.
Pull the wheels off and see if I can put them back on again, which I couldn't.
That little wiry thing.
Yeah, that wiry thing, right?
The little wiry axle, basically.
And then the doors, you can pull the doors off, and it was really cool, but you couldn't put them back on. It was like, oh, okay, broken. Next one. So I like people who have kept things from their childhood, especially things that, are important to them. Marco, Stephen, I think you should say some more, but Marco has a great air-cooled story. I couldn't, and here I am thinking I was getting onto the point. Here's Marco's car in his garage, his 996 Turbo, which he's so happy with. Great story, great 996. And then he tells me about all the other cars, which I'm not seeing, which are in his driveway, and the cars that he has. And it's like, you didn't give me any insight into that either. I knew he had some VWs, and you told me that, but I didn't realize how many.
Well, like I said, I didn't know exactly how many were there. I've heard of them because I don't really see, up until kind of getting his 996 Turbo, I hadn't really hung out with Marco much, like maybe at the odd sort of family do, or if I'd kind of go and visit my uncle, who's Marco's father-in-law.
You're so antisocial.
I am antisocial. That I'd sort of bump into him and we'd sort of have a bit of a chat. But so I can't say that I had like just full knowledge of like everything that he's kind of got and what he's been sort of doing and tinkering with. But I kind of knew that there was stuff kind of going on in the background. But yeah.
I said to Marco in the podcast, and you wouldn't remember this, like the correlation between him and PJ. I know PJ's got the PJ in the UK. PJ is the guy that does classics at the Clubhouse in the UK, which is now a yearly event.
Yep.
And PJ had that whole VW story as well. The whole Volkswagen thing with the buses and the Beetles. Marco has it as well. PJ bought a 356A. Marco bought a 996. But it's
Yeah, it makes sense to me.
and the engine.
The progression from a V-dub to a...
The engine story, right? The engine story, Marco's engine story. And I'm going to give this away. The engine story he had in his first Beetle, and then he kept that engine, because he tweaked that engine and he kept that engine. Which is pretty cool. I thought that was a really cool aspect of it. But as soon as I finished talking to Marco, honestly, I went on to car sales to see how much Beetles were, even though I said I was an anti-Beetle person. And then there was a really cool one on there with patina and whatever, but it was still about, I don't know, 30 grand, 25, 30 grand.
Yikes.
Which seems a lot for a Beetle.
Know that was so valuable.
Yeah, they're so valuable, mate.
I mean, to a degree, I'm not really surprised that they've kind of become valuable. I suppose they're not going to be, as I'm talking in general, I can't imagine that they'd be that rare. Like, surely there's quite a lot of them out there, but it doesn't surprise me that there's sort of like a evolution or whatever, in terms of, like, if you're a Volkswagen enthusiast, that you sort of basically could move and evolve into Porsches. Like, definitely from an old air-cooled sense, but I'm thinking of my other cousin, the one that got the M3.
Yeah.
He's a mad V-dub kind of guy, but he's a bit younger than me, and he's not like old Beetle kind of person. He's hot hatch, GTI type guy. Had a Golf R, blah, blah, blah. It sort of also makes sense to me that you kind of progress from that type of world into Porsches as well. I don't know why, it just sort of seems to be a bit of a German kind of car culture crossover, in my opinion.
Yep. Yeah, but there was Marco. Is that thing, and it's a little bit what we're going to talk about today. About beating the 911 in a way. How people are always trying to beat the 911 or beat Porsche, I should say. But I thought it was interesting. Compete, really beat. Yeah. It's a tough market. It's like going up against Apple in a way. You know what I mean? Like, and I know PC people are going to say, well, Apple's not that great, but it is like going up against the iPhone. I mean, you've got the leader. Do you want some of that market? Do you want to beat that market? Where do you want to be when you go up against brands like this, Steve?
Well, there's two ways of doing it. You either try to emulate and sort of copy it to a degree, which, like, if you're kind of drawing parallels with like iPhones or Apple kind of gear, pretty much everybody sort of did do that. But call it a 911 specifically, just for a second. I know you're talking about the Porsche brand, but it's pretty hard to kind of copy what was a air-cooled flat six with the engine out the back. Like, you can't really go and just sort of replicate that. So then you think about the kind of cars that have tried to kind of come up and just be really good all-round sports cars. Yeah. And that's not an easy, I don't know, there seems to be so many people that have tried it, but not necessarily kind of gotten there.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about that. And I guess, like you said, it's the 911 is what everyone's trying to beat, but, some cars come out and they don't want to compete directly, so they might try to compete in one part of the market. The thing that comes to mind to me is the Aston Martin. When the Aston Martin V8...
Vantage?
Yeah, the Vantage V8 came out in 2000, what was that, 2010, 2011, was it?
Earlier? I think it might be earlier than that, but anyway.
Was it earlier?
Maybe.
2006, was it? I remember when the Vantage came out, the V8 Vantage, and everyone said this is a 911 killer and all of that sort of thing, and people are going to buy this car and get out of their 911s and buy a Vantage. And I remember at the time there was, I remember Tasha's boss at the time, he had his Carrera 4, 996 Carrera 4. And I know he was tempted. I know he was looking at it. He spoke to me about it and he was tempted. He didn't do it. But I think that's what happens to all of us. You might... And just going back to Marco, like how he said about the Japanese cars were such a big thing at the time when he was looking for his first car, but he loved German cars so much that he put his money into a new Golf. You know what I mean? He bought a new Golf because he wanted a German car, and his German passion has continued all the way until, 20 years later or whatever it is, up until now. And I think it's the same when you see, we all love 911s, we all love Porsche. And then another brand comes out with a car, which we're going to talk about, the Lotus. Another brand comes out with a car. And you think, oh, maybe it's okay. Maybe it's okay. But how do you weigh it up, Steve? You know what I mean? How do you weigh up those choices where you stick with a brand like Porsche and let's forget about values and depreciation and all those sort of things, right? How do you, what is the deciding factor that makes you stick with a brand like Porsche? And I guess we can lead into the Lotus, the new Lotus, and you've been reading about it. How do you see it?
Yeah, it's a tough one because I think also when you're talking about a sports car, like if you think about it, you're not really going to just purely use your head when you're kind of purchasing a sports car, whether it's a 911 or a Cayman or a Boxster, because it's supposed to be a more emotional kind of product. So yes, you can kind of go facts and figures and stats and resale and reliability and all that type of thing. But clearly when it's sort of something a little bit more fun, you would then factor in sort of other parameters. And I reckon like even aesthetics is a massive thing. You know, like I think there's one little segue. Sorry, my kids are going absolutely mental in the background. Sorry, what I was going to say was that it's an emotion. It's obviously like an emotional kind of thing to go and purchase a sports car of any kind. But then, like to a degree, like if you're in that sphere, buying a sports car, buying a Porsche could sort of be seen as the sort of boring kind of cliched option as well, if you know what I mean, because supposedly everybody's got one, and it's not a particularly, it's not a particularly left of center kind of thing to do when it's an emotional sort of decision to go and buy something fun. So a bit of a weird one, but I don't know. It seems to always come back to Porsches, though.
No, I kind of think that's what it is as well. I think, and I think these brands like Aston Martin, even Lotus with the new Emira, isn't it? It's called Emira.
I think so.
With the new Emira. I think that's what they try to pinpoint with their marketing. I think they do try to give you that thing where you're getting something different, you're getting something more exciting, you're still getting a very designer, a very unique car. You're getting all that history. I think with the Lotus, like you said, aren't they the AMG engines? Is that correct?
Yeah, so I was just reading up on it. And look, this isn't new news. I'm sure if anybody sort of reads car literature, they would have seen this sort of Emira launch to death.
But Steve,
I reckon
just to interrupt for a second, it's. I think you're underselling it a bit because it's not really about the launch of the car. It's really about what makes people move away from, say, their 911 into this car, right? And that's kind of what we're trying to get at.
You're specifically talking about that. Okay.
Oh, no, I mean, I'm just in general. I mean, no, lead into the car, of course, because a lot of people, there's probably some people listening who haven't seen it, right? Because it is an English brand. People in the US may not have seen it. I've seen it in the UK because it was flooding everything, and it is on all over the YouTube channels as well. But it also is that progression where why do these brands try to beat Porsche, and then do they actually make a big enough dent to take the customers away from Porsche long term?
Couldn't answer that last bit, but let's talk specifically about Lotus for a second.
Okay.
Lotus, at least when you think about it, is a brand sort of steeped in motorsport history, just like Porsche. There's lots and lots of heritage. Everybody sort of knows and has read stuff about Colin Chapman and sort of, his ethos for lightweight and this and that. So plenty of stuff, like coming from a marketing background, plenty of material to kind of work with from a heritage point of view, from a motorsport point of view, from a looks point of view. I'd argue that if you walk down the street wearing a Lotus T-shirt, hopefully not in your Lotus, but if you did, there's a little bit of credit in that. It's still a cool brand, right?
There's anything wrong with that, everybody.
But you know what I'm saying? Lotus is actually still like a cool brand. So that ticks like a massive box. Then they kind of go and release like a mid-engine car. There's two kind of choices of engines. Like there's an AMG 4-cylinder turbo, which I personally don't particularly like when I've heard them drive down the street. I think I've driven one once. But I can sort of see the merit in it, like super powerful, like really, really kind of high power output for the size of the engine. And then the Toyota V6, which by all accounts actually sounds quite good and would be super reliable too. So, like it starts to kind of tickle the boxes, and then you kind of look at it and it looks pretty cool. Like the actual design of it, it's mid-engined, it's got the right heritage. Hopefully if they kind of get their build quality up, and then like all of a sudden you go, oh yeah, that's a pretty kind of viable sort of option if you're in the market and you've kind of got, like money to burn.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I don't hate Lotus at all. I think Lotus is very interesting, and every time I go for my run in London, just near Greenwich, there's a red one on the street, Elise on the street with the wing, and and I look into it and I like
Exige?
that. Exige or Elise? It's got a wing. Is that an Exige?
More likely to be an Exige.
Okay, must be an Exige. But then I look inside, and I have a look at it. I mean, Tasha sees it as well. My wife sees it, and she thought, it's quite cute because it's very small, right?
Yes.
It is very small. It is super low. It is super stripped out. But, for that little track, fun sort of car that maybe goes alongside your Porsche, I don't know whether it would replace the Porsche. And I'm just talking about the earlier Lotus models, which I'm sure a lot of people listening, Steve, have looked at them online and seen the price and seen how there's some bargains there now. They have depreciated quite a bit. And there's some models you can actually get at a good price. And some are really tweaked, like you said, for motorsport. Some are, they do have the motorsport history, but some are tweaked for the track. You've got the Cup versions, But that stripped out nature, that really low, that just back to minimal, early Porsche sort of thing is really appealing. And I can see why people, like it. And I think, like you said, Lotus's history and then bringing out this new car. And you have to, if no one's seen it, go to YouTube and just do a search for it. But that Emira, I agree with you. It's a nice looking car. It really is a nice looking car.
Yeah. So I was sort of watching videos, and like you actually do hear lots of kind of car people talk about it. Like, there's the usual crew like Zuckerman and Spike and Magnus Walker and all of that. They were always getting press cars. So they have sort of spoken about the name eludes me for a second. Not the Elise or Exige, the other model, which just got superseded by this new car, the Emira. They've all been kind of driving it, and they all sort of seem to kind of, quite like it. Even the Sharkworks crew, like Alex at Sharkworks, there's all these kind of people that you kind of respect and you go, like, quite like what they like. You don't really hear that many sort of bad words sort of said about the brand. So it's definitely kind of up there and as an experience. And they're innovative too. Like when they brought out the Elise, it was like that extruded aluminium sort of shell or body or whatever you want to call it, chassis.
Yeah.
Which is really different for the time. Like nobody else sort of did that, which is how they managed to kind of get it so light. Really, really kind of innovative as a company. Anyway, so like when all of this sort of stuff came out a couple of weeks ago, I think I jumped on a Pistons Head thread and just started reading up about it a little bit. And there was just a really interesting kind of thread because it was from like Porsche owners' perspective. And just a little bit of chatter about like people kind of going, oh, you're tempted, like, or people sort of saying, yeah, like I've got my order in. And I think just generally making big generalizations, there's a kind of group of people that are sort of cashing in on the fact that their used Porsches are obviously kind of worth something, and then, switching over to these Lotus Emiras. So it'd be quite interesting to see when the actual cars kind of get delivered, but people are sort of taking the bait and switching. I saw
that thread briefly, and I'm looking at it now, Steve. But it was, they were talking about used market between 60K and 85K, and someone's put a list, 997, this is UK, of course, 997 GTS, 997 Turbo, 997.1 GT3. I didn't know you could get a .1 GT3 for 85. 991.1 C2S, 991 GTS, and the guy goes on to list 981 GT4.
Yep.
But it seems by the thread...
So these are all the cars. These are all the cars that you'd be cross-shopping if you were looking at Emira, right?
Cross-shopping, yeah. Because you're getting a new Emira or you're getting a used Porsche. Used Porsche prices have gone up. It seems like the Emira has been in the UK, has been positioned, and we talked about this before we started recording. It seems it has been positioned as, we say Porsche beta. It seems like Lotus hasn't really decided with this model yet to directly attack the 911, but they're definitely going for the Cayman GTS 4.0 kind of market, aren't they? It seems like they're going with that market. And you can see by the pricing of it, it's almost in the middle of that.
From a price point of view, it's not really competing with 911s. It's a decent amount cheaper, isn't it?
718, isn't it? 718.
Yeah. Which is sort of smart because if you kind of think in the past, like of the cars that have tried to usurp like a 911, you're talking like AMG GT, the AMG, like the Aston Martin V8 Vantage. It's that type of car, which is still a rung up from this Lotus. This Lotus is sort of cheaper than that, but it looks, it certainly looks like a proper kind of sports car.
I think for the price they're putting it at, I think they're being quite clever, actually. I think that, and I think that they're also thinking, well, we might not be able to go for the 911 guys and get them out of their 911. But hey, we might be able to get them into one of these as well as their 911. Do you know what I mean? Like as a second car. Possibly, because there are people that own 911s, as we know, that also have Boxsters or also have Caymans, 718s, I should say, 718 Caymans or 718 Boxsters or old Boxsters. So is that what they're trying to do? We're not trying to beat the 911, but if we can get you to look at this car, which people obviously are from this piston heads thread, people are looking at the Lotus, Porsche people, we're talking about Porsche people here. And then they go, well, maybe I won't get out of my 911, but people with Caymans, with 718s or older 718s that can get good value for them, like you said, good resale value, they might switch. Because they want to try something else. Now, I personally wouldn't.
Yeah.
I personally,
you're getting a brand new car.
Yeah, and you're getting a brand new car. I probably wouldn't do it personally. For me, I probably wouldn't.
Would you be tempted to test drive it though?
I'd be tempted to drive it. I guess if you've got a mid-engine Porsche, you got a Cayman, or you Boxster 718 or GTS, maybe you would be tempted to drive it.
But even you in your position. You in your position with a 997 Carrera, so you're an existing sort of Porsche enthusiast. Like you are probably kind of target market for this car. If you sort of went, for whatever reason, I might sort of consider getting out of the 997.
I wouldn't.
Would you go and test drive the Emira?
I wouldn't get out of the 997 for it as much as I like it. I think the price in Australia is going to be expensive. I think. The UK price. I think in Australia it's going to be really targeting, top end 718 GTS prices. It's going to be high, I think, Steve. Don't you?
I don't know, but generally cars here are, and more niche kind of cars are more expensive than they are, say in the UK.
And everyone knows I'm looking at the moment because I want Natasha, my wife, to get her license when we go back to Australia. And I'm looking at cars that maybe she could drive in. No, but I'm just saying, would she like that? Probably. But I think she likes the Porsche better. Do you know what I mean? I think she'd rather have an old Boxster or whatever, but that's a lower price point. You know what I mean? It's a much lower price point.
Different.
But I think, I forgot about the AMG GT. You're right. The two cars that come to mind that have really tried to go head on with a 911, Vantage V8 when it came out, right? And AMG GT. And, the AMG GT, I want to put a question to you actually. The GTR is a very sought after car. The GTRs and the GTR Pros. Now, people who don't know the Mercedes line, GTR is like the GT3, right? GTR is like, GTR Pro is like the GT3 RS. Now, so the AMG GTR, I look at them, they depreciated a lot. There was a lot there for very low prices there for a while. They've gone back up again. Would you be tempted as a GT3 owner to go into something like a GTR?
I'd love one. Absolutely love one. But, again, I would never, and look, I know you're talking hypothetical, but I'm not in the position to have like more than one sports car kind of thing. But if I could hang on to my GT3, because I sort of intend never to give that thing up. But like AMG GT is a really appealing car, as was the previous Aston Martin. I don't really like the looks of the new the new Vantage as much, just from a pure looks perspective. And it sounds like they released it too early and it was glitchy, and like, you know, they've sort of realized the error of their ways, because they've installed the old AMG boss as the new CEO. But yeah, both cars I'd have like lots of time and respect for. I'd love to kind of have a go in it.
Yeah.
Always look at them when they kind of whiz past. They sound brilliant.
They do.
So
I mean, I saw the new Aston Martin in Canary Wharf the other day. It went past. And it looks...
Mistake it for an MX-5 from the front?
Yeah, there's views of it that I really think are really, really cool. But there's other views of it that confuse me. Like you said, it's like, what is that reminding me of? What does that look like? You know, it kind of always gives me that feeling. The previous version, the first generation, which they kept for God knows how many years, the Vantage.
Such a pretty car.
It's a pretty car.
That's a very pretty car.
And I like it, especially if you get the slightly newer version when they ironed out the kinks. Obviously, the earlier ones have a few issues. And I think as a used car proposition, it's a good car. Now the AMG and the AMG, you know, GTS, GTC, you know, all these variations. There's a lot of Porsche people that I speak to and have, you know, who are saying, you know, they wouldn't mind an AMG GTT against their 911, and people who have bought one to go alongside their 911. But I get to the point, I don't know if it's enough to completely take you out of the brand. And I see these cars, Steve, they're a little bit like M cars. How I've spoken to a few owners on Owner Stories. They jump to an M car due to priorities or family commitments or family, you know, family priorities.
Because they're more practical.
And then they come back. Most people have come back to Porsche because they still can't get everything from an M car, or they can't get everything even from an AMG GT. It's still not a Porsche.
Well, an AMG GT is sort of more comparable. Again, sorry, talking 911s for a second, because it is a 2+2. Like you can shove like two miniature kind of people into back seats, I believe. But, you know, like it's not like a proper kind of four-seater where you can put, you know, like big kids or like proper adults in the back seat. But it's closer, you know, like an M3 and a 911 really aren't kind of natural kind of competitors, because one is based on a sort of proper sedan. The other one is from the ground up sort of sports car. Yes, they're both kind of performance oriented, but so an AMG GT had a really good hot crack at sort of trying to match the 911. And I think it's been quite successful, but I don't think from a sale, and this doesn't come from a place of authority, like I don't know how good the numbers are. It mustn't be too bad if they're still selling it, because if they weren't selling, then they'd probably kill it. But
well, they keep doing different versions, don't they? I mean, I watched Shimmy 150, and he's got the Black Series one, and I mean, it looks like a beast. You know what I mean? It looks like a beast, that car. I know you don't watch that guy, but you should just watch that episode where he's picked up that Black Series.
Right.
It's not a 911. It's not rear-engined. It's front-engined. I mean, you know, AMG GT's got that point of difference because it has got that super long hood. You know, it's a beautiful looking car. And you can see if they depreciate it and you can get a used one and you have it as a second car with your 911, I think it's okay. I still don't see it replacing the 911 because I still see AMG GT, GTS a little bit like the 992 Turbo market. It seems to be that sort of customer.
But that's exactly right. And because it is more GT than sort of out and out sort of sports car. No one's kind of got the exact same positioning as a 911. And I don't know if that's possibly by design when you kind of think about it, because like if you go and spend $1 billion kind of developing a car to kind of get to try to compete with the most popular kind of sports car there is, like of all time, essentially, and you basically can't match it because it's such a high benchmark. Aren't you better off building something that has a slight difference, going back to what we sort of said originally, that it has a slight kind of point of difference, because then you never really will be lined up against a 911.
Yes. Okay, so this is where I think they've done, where the Emira has actually done, where they've done a good job with the Emira, because they're targeting the 718, they're targeting that range. It's mid-engine, it's comparable in that respect, right? What you said is about people think, Porsches are boring or common, so they've made it quite unique. Like the design is quite beautiful. It looks like you've got a supercar for non-supercar money. And I actually think in the short term they might actually have a good attack at the 718. You know what I mean? I'm not saying for me, but I think as a market thing, I think they're going to have a good stab at it, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. I've always loved kind of Lotuses. I've always wanted, not that I've ever kind of been seriously sort of there, but like a lease, I've always looked at Elises and gone, they're cool looking cars. Like they're very rare in Sydney, but if one's ever kind of driven up alongside, you do have a good long look at it, and you read nothing but good things about the performance side. Like for sure, it sounds like reliability is slightly different and build quality, but do you sort of like, I have a feeling that if you're a Lotus owner, like if this was the PorscheCooled podcast, I bet you like they're all kind of going sort of similar to Alphas, that rather than it being a flaw, it's probably kind of more about character.
But I think the main thing
because I bet you there's nothing like it.
Yeah, but I think the main thing car manufacturers are doing, right, when you're up against someone like a Porsche, is if you can get people to at least talk about it, if you can get people to at least consider it, at least think about it, and there's enough people chattering about it, then you might not get all the Porsche people. You might not get the 911 people, but you'll get a few. And you might get enough, Steve, that it makes a difference for whatever they're planning next. You know what I mean? So obviously there's going to be, this is obviously against the 718. It has to be against the 718. But what is the next one? What is the next one? That's going to be, you get people into the brand, you get to 911. Now I just want to go back to what Marco said about how when he, Japanese cars were huge, fast and furious, and he still wanted German. Now I'm kind of a little bit like that, as you know. Like I like, designer furniture like you. We like to, designer, quality clothes. I'm not going to call it designer clothes, but more designer type quality clothes. Appreciate design. We appreciate design. I can appreciate the design of the Lotus. It's not German. It may have an AMG engine in it. I'm like you. I would probably go for the other engine, the Toyota engine, which I guess is like a super engine, is it? Is that what the engine is?
No, it's a V6.
V6, is it?
I don't know. It's probably out of a Camry.
It's out of a Camry, yeah. I would probably go for the Toyota engine with the Lotus. It's not a German car. Lotus isn't fantastic for quality. Maybe they fix that up. But then again, AMG, Aston Martin is also not great with quality. They weren't when they brought out the old Vantage. Even the new Vantage has still got quality issues. You know what I mean? Like, it's like they don't want to. Sometimes these brands, I just never understand, Steve, how they don't want to improve that thing. And I think until they get to that point, and especially when you're looking at new Porsches, Porsche has really fixed up issues they've had in the past. And the issue they've had in the past has always been their interiors have always been a little bit, especially with 996 and 997, have had a lot of issues with things breaking, wearing, air conditioning knobs, plastics. And I think in the 992, from all the 992 owners I've spoken to and all the things I've seen online, the 992 quality interior is back to that German standard.
I'd say that most cars are like that, though. Like as a whole, if you kind of hop into a Kia, like a completely different ilk of car, like quality of cars in terms of, like you hear it often, it's very rare to kind of come across a bad car these days. Like all cars perform, they look better, and they're much better built than they ever used to be. So it's almost like if you were to compare the range, like from the bottom end and the top end of cars, it's compressed. So it is much, much harder. Like if you jump into like, I hate them, but if you jump into like a Hyundai i30, like even that, is it the N range? That, that Hyundai have kind of released.
Supposed to be good.
They're supposed to be amazing cars. And like you think about it, like 15 years ago, if I sort of said to you, I'd ever want to have a go on a Hyundai, I'd kind of say, no, forget it. Like it's a complete shitbox. But, so the whole kind of range of cars and quality and performance is definitely kind of compressing. But quality-wise, like Porsche, we mentioned it last podcast too. Like you think about it, Porsche's evolving like this 911 over like 40, 50 years kind of thing. So
Well,
it's a much easier task for them to kind of build a good car. Like, it's such a cheat.
well, that's what I was going to get to, right? The 996, we all love the 996, we all love the 997, right? But there were some quality issues internally, interior. But you think about when the 996 has come out and now the 992 is, got quite a nice interior and everything's been fixed up. It's taken quite some time. It hasn't happened. It hasn't happened overnight.
But to be fair, like you're viewing like the quality of a 996 in with today's perspective kind of thing. Back in the day, nobody ever sort of said, hey, the 996 was kind of built shit. You don't really know whether a 992 like in, 10, 15 years time is going to be the same. Like all those sort of flaws and glitches and the rubbery kind of finishes will probably kind of come to fruition as well. Like,
you see it with new Porsche eyes. You see it with new Porsche eyes.
Yeah. Like overall, like obviously there is like something to be said, I reckon, for build quality of Porsches. But I was having this chat with my uncle even. Like I reckon there's a massive difference between the build quality of my wife's Macan versus my 997. And her Macan is obviously a newer car than my 997. Like I can notice it hands down in terms of when you go and wash and polish the car and stuff like that in terms of the paint quality. No, the 997 is heaps better. Far better. Yeah. The Macan build quality is not up to like what I'm used to in sort of 911 quality control.
But is that because it is built in a different factory and because it is more mass produced? There's a lot more of them being made?
Yeah. I suspect so, but I don't know the definitive answer to that.
That's surprising. That's surprising.
I was kind of going back to 964 and 993, which was sort of more hand built, blah, blah, blah. You can bang on about that sort of feel of solidity and all of that sort of stuff. But the Macan is far, far away from that sort of build quality in my view.
And you've got the top end one as well. You've got the turbo, so
wouldn't make a difference.
Should make a difference with the price.
Yeah, it should, but I don't think that it does. Like I genuinely sort of think that there's quite a kind of big difference in it. I don't know about more recent ones. Like, I hopped into my uncle's 991.2, but you don't really kind of get much of an appreciation for these things until you kind of drive something for, quite some time, and then you kind of get a proper feel for it. Like it looks amazing from an aesthetic point of view, beautiful kind of thing. But
like you said, it's when you own it, it's when you drive it, it's when you wash it, it's when you're looking at it, especially if you wash. This is always the benefit of washing and detailing your own car, that you see the flaws. There's a few flaws here and there. You know every corner of it after quite a few washes, you know what I mean? Yeah. Which I like. I like that. I like how you know everything. Also, I guess is the bad side of it. If anything happens, you'll see it straight away. And my eagle eyes always notices things all the time, which, every time I wash it, I notice something that shouldn't be there. And
once you kind of see it, then you can't unsee it. Like as an example, like with the Macan, there's sort of there's a name for it, like artifacts in the paintwork on the hood of the bonnet. And I would have thought that you can tell like that car hasn't been repainted, so that's the original paint. But to me, like that should have been rejected in the factory, but it didn't. Like they obviously just kind of let it through.
So what is it? What is it on the paint?
It sort of looks like, how do I explain it? It looks like there may have been like almost like a little bubble that popped, so then it's not kind of completely smooth. And, like you've got to crouch down and see it in certain light and stuff like that. But just in a normal world, and there's a couple of these all over the Macan. In an absolute normal world, you would not see that like on my 997. There's no way in hell you would have saw it on my old 964 or 993
that's weird though.
As well.
Do they change? This is the thing. When they're doing their quality control, once it comes off the line, things with Macans, are they doing their standard is lower than a 911? Like because they're trying to do it quicker, because they're trying to produce more cars and they're trying to get them off the line quicker? I wonder if that's how it works.
Well, one other way I don't know. Look, I'm sort of talking out my bum a little bit, but I do remember when I went to speak to that car detailer that my uncle used, and he said that he reckons that there is a noticeable difference in Porsche paint after Porsche properly kind of came under the Volkswagen family, under the Volkswagen group. Because at that point, obviously, they started to kind of share componentry and paint and stuff like that. They still would have been bought, that car still would have been painted in the Porsche factory. But at some point in time, obviously, like the materials, like the paint, they're not going to let Porsche go and buy their own paint. They're going to, use the power of group buying and all that.
So it's the money guys impacting production, impacting quality. Hey, speaking about quality, but it's interesting, just back to the Lotus before we sign off on the Lotus one, Steve. I mean, is the Lotus a Porsche beater? It's probably going to give the 718 a good run for its money, I think, and especially, like you said, that piston heads thread, which I might post on the Discord, on the PorscheCooled Discord. And thank you for everyone for joining PorscheCooled on Discord. There's about 30 odd members now, like it's growing quite quickly. But I might post a link of it there, of that forum, so people can see it. But I think it's interesting, Steve, that there are people considering it. You know what I mean? They're considering what you can get for the money and should I buy this instead. Now, we're not talking values, but, the Lotus future value, I think you have to be aware that, Lotuses don't have a good record there. Let's be honest. They don't have a good record. And then there's also the quality issues. Let's hope they've fixed up some of the quality issues they used to have. I mean, engine-wise, engineering-wise, it's probably fine, but it's that quality. If it worries you, those sort of things, maybe it's still best to stick with a German car.
Yeah, and I think you'd probably, like, if you're in the market, I think one of the things that would pop into my head is like, like Porsche engines, well, see, like even now, they start sharing engines, not with 911s or Caymans and Boxsters, but they've started kind of sharing engines with Audi and Volkswagen and, Bentley and all of that sort of thing. So they're not as unique as they used to be. But if I was in the Emira market, I'd probably be kind of having a little think about how do I feel about an AMG engine or a Toyota engine. It's not, it's not a Lotus engine.
True.
Which might be, look, I think if you're kind of buying into a AMG engine, particularly cars that are kind of putting the V8s, like the AMG V8s, I'd be kind of going, yeah, for sure. Like, I'd have no problem with an Aston Martin with an AMG V8. I'd rather that than the old one in terms of as an engine, because that's a cool engine. But it is a different kind of point of view. But sorry, I was going to say too, like, the Emira price point is quite smart because, again, from sort of like a marketing perspective, if you're gonna bait people to kind of get into the brand, you're gonna want to be cheaper. Like, let's face it. Same with a phone. Like, if you're going to try to switch somebody out of an iPhone, you'll pitch it like a significant amount of money cheaper to get people to kind of try it and then build from there. And once you've kind of built your cred and all that sort of stuff, then you start raising your prices again.
Yeah, and I think what you just said then about the engine, though, and I think that's where my sticking point is, especially with a new Lotus. I don't know, maybe like I said, the Exige and the Elise, those sort of ones, if you get it at a good price, it's a good little fun car. You know what I mean? It's a good little track car. But when you buy a Lotus, in my head, I know that it's not a Lotus engine. You know what I mean? It is a Toyota engine. It's an AMG engine. Not that there's anything wrong with those engines. When I buy a Porsche, even though you said, it's Volkswagen Group and they share, when you buy a Porsche, you still think the engine is it's a Porsche engine. You know what I mean? And maybe that's the orientation of where the engine is because it's in the rear, but there's no mistaking. You've got a Porsche and you've got a Porsche engine, and that's what's important to me. That's what's important to me.
How many other flat sixes are there out there? Like where can you buy a flat six in any other kind of car?
Exactly, and that can't be beaten. That really can't be beaten. Hey, Steve, go ahead.
Just one other quick little thing. Like in terms of Lotus, did you see that Radford thing that Jensen Button's behind?
I did, and I listened to the podcast when they're on Matt Farah, but I don't really understand it yet. I haven't actually looked at it enough to really understand what's going on there.
It's bloody cool. It looks great. And so like this is just another thing which makes me kind of go, yeah, Lotus as a brand have kind of got some stuff kind of going on. Like this isn't, I'm assuming this isn't really sanctioned by Lotus, but it's sort of like what maybe Singer is to
okay.
Porsche in terms of it's all like bespoke kind of coach-built cars. There's only 62 of them, but it looks cool.
So they're getting everything together to make Lotus more of an important brand, well, not that it's not important already with its history, but a brand that people start noticing again.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so.
Speaking of betas, today I'm picking up a new hire car in Bahrain because the Mercedes-Benz air conditioning couldn't be fixed, and it's like a nightmare. So
right,
I'm going to be driving an MG.
I'm assuming you're not
MG
talking like
SUV.
No, this is no.
I wish it was this cool. At 11 o'clock this morning, I'm getting picked up, and then I've got to take the guy back to where it comes from to pay for it. It's such a weird setup here. I'm getting an MG ZS SUV for.
I'll be very interested to hear what you say about that.
I'm not yet sure what engine it is. All I know is the automatic. I'm hoping it is that 1 liter, 1 liter 3, whatever. The better engine, I think, is the 1 liter one, not the 1.5. I think one engine only comes with manual and one engine comes with automatic. Apparently, the automatic one is a better engine. It's just a car, just to have a car at the moment, but I don't know.
Oh, a car is better than absolutely no car, but I do remember some mates, like I'm amongst my kind of circle of friends, I guess my friends will kind of call me and go, hey, we're looking for a new car, blah, blah, blah. What do you think of this? And one day my friend Todd rang me and said, like he's got a wife and 2 girls, blah, blah, blah. And he sort of said, we need to buy a new car, like the other one kind of crapped out. There's some really good deals going on an MG SUV. And it's like, run like the wind. Do not do the MG.
I've seen them in Bahrain before. I think they're reasonably popular here. I've seen a lot of MGs here, actually. I think probably because of the price point. Even though it's not super cheap in the UK, this car, it's not super cheap. I did look at the price late last night. Yeah, the Chinese don't. But anyway, we'll see. We'll see what it's like. There was either the choice of cars available. I mean, I don't know. There could have been somewhere else. There was the Picanto, which is a very small Kia, very, very tiny, which is like which is a cute little car maybe in Sydney, but here, once you're on the freeway and the expressways here, you're doing 120. Most people do faster. It's too scary on the roads. And then the only other option, with the MG, there was another option was the Picanto, or there was the Hyundai Accent. And I thought, I know it's really weird, but here I'd rather, even though it's not a proper SUV, it's only like a mini SUV, I still prefer something that's a bit higher up just for the running around that we're going to have to do. You know what I mean? But I don't know what it's going to be like. I really don't. I'll tell you when I speak to you. I'll tell you once I pick it up. I get it at 11 o'clock today, so we'll see what happens.
Yeah, right. That'll be interesting. I don't think I can quite picture you driving around an MG, but we'll see.
Definitely not a Porsche beater. Steve, you want to finish with a recommendation? We're almost done. You got some time? You want to finish or not? Yeah, quickly?
Yeah. No,
okay.
Let's do the recommendation.
What have you got?
I'm going to do my second one. I'm going to do, I know you've spoken about decals in the past because you sourced it from the crew in Canada?
Yes, Carrera decals, then Ren decals, who operates through his Facebook page.
Yep. Yeah, so like there's an equivalent over here called Autographic. I bought stuff from them on numerous occasions, and like they're pretty good. Same issue. I think if everybody's kind of cottoned onto it, when you go to any sort of Porsche decal place, they've obviously been served with a cease and desist order from the Porsche lawyers. So when you jump on their websites, you no longer can sort of literally see the Porsche kind of logo and script and all that sort of stuff. But the guy's name, I think, is Angelo. And I think he's based in the Northern Beaches. Like if you go on Autographic, pretty much all the kind of Singer style kind of graphics, the side stripes, the bonnet stripes, 911R type things. Look, to be honest, I think they're kind of all, made out of the same 3M kind of material. So I don't think anybody can offer different sort of color choices and stuff like that. But you get pretty good service out of them. So
I might check them out as well. I was thinking, and I think you're right with the 3M material. I remember Chris from Carrera Decals, who became Ren Decals. He's the same, he can't show pictures of it. I don't think he has anything on his website. I'm pretty sure he's still producing. He's in Canada, I think, from memory. I think he was in Canada. He knew exactly, what I liked about him is he just knew exactly what the factory decals were. He knew if they were matte, he knew if they were semi-gloss, you know what I mean? So he knew what it was, which I thought was good. As soon as I asked him the question, I forget what the answer was now, but he knew the answer, he knew the color, so all of that was good. It came, it fitted perfectly. I didn't fit mine myself. I had someone do it at Autohouse, or someone who Autohouse used. But I was thinking, I was thinking about removing my stripe. I'll come back to that because I keep seeing there's a guy on Instagram, and I forget your name, it's 997 something. He's got a car that basically looks the same as, he's got the same wheels as mine. He's done them in the same way. And he doesn't have the stripe. He doesn't have the script, the Porsche script. And I'm thinking, it still looks good. Like I said, my wife's not keen on it. Then I thought, maybe I should go like older style air-cooled and have Carrera on the side instead. What do you think of that, Steve?
Not my favorite. There's something about it, like I think, because I've seen cars like that, or even on GT3s, you can kind of get that sort of more cursive-y, scripty type thing, and you can put that sort of big GT3 kind of logo on the side. There's something about it that I don't know. It's a bit kind of big, and it's definitely a bit more retro. And I reckon it gets to a point with some of these, like, even though like you're talking like a 15, 14-year-old car or whatever, there's still something a little bit more modern about the design that to me doesn't kind of carry some of the completely sort of retro script type
for me,
stuff.
when I wanted my script, as you know, I wanted to be that singer type style, you know what I mean? That subtle sort of style, and that's what I was going for. I think I like, and the reason why I said Carrera is I'm not going to do Carrera on the side of mine. I like the Carrera script decal on air-cooled, on air-cooled, on air-cooleds. I think on air-cooleds it looks really cool. No offense to anyone who's got Carrera on the side of their 996 or 997. For me, I like it when it just says Porsche on the side of the 997 and the 996. To me, that just suits the car better. And like you said with the GT3, that GT3 script on 997 GT3s, 996 GT3s, it doesn't work for me either. But then on a GT3 RS, I think the GT3 RS decal, even though it's quite full on, actually works on the 901.1 GT3 RS, you know what I mean? Or even the 997 GT3 RS. I think that works. But on the GT3, it's like it's not long enough or something. It's just something that it's just not balanced for me when I see it. It doesn't look balanced. Hey, my recommendation, because we got to go. My recommendation, I always like websites. You always go parts, but I'll come on to parts eventually. But I really like, and most people know this site. I don't think it's anything new, but if you don't know it, go and have a look at it. It's AlphaSpot. AlphaSpot obviously has an Instagram. He has a website. The website I like because I think it's something that if you were going to do a Porsche site and you were going to talk about Porsches and sell Porsche-related merchandise, I think it's done really, really well, Steve. And that's what I like about it. I like the variety. I like how he's got books. I like how he has the Porsche Lego. You can go to the shop and buy that. You can get Luftkult wine. You can get T-shirts. Then he's got the cars for sale, and some of the cars for sale on there, you can sell your car there as a dealer or a private person. The cars are really cool. Like the listings on there, they have a lot of really cool listings. And then the article. They're curated really well. It's a really nice curated site. That's the word I was looking for. And then you've got the Porsche articles. And I think some of the articles are well written. I mean, I look at it all the time. I go to it all the time. I repost his images from Instagram, on my Instagram, on PorscheCooled Instagram. So I like it. And I think if you haven't seen AlphaSpot, you should go and check it out. And it's if you're into Porsches, it's definitely a place to go. You agree, Steve?
I agree.
All right.
I do.
That's about it. Let's call it. You had enough for today. I think we might go. It's 7:30 here in Bahrain. You've got stuff to do. The girls have stopped crying, which is nice. They're relaxed now. You can go off and just...
No, not for long, mate. Enjoy it while it lasts.
Really?
Uh-huh.
You haven't told the listeners about having two girls now instead of one. Is it become easier like everyone says?
Fuck no. Who was it out there that told me that?
Ajmal.
Like somebody kind of did. Yeah, like, no.
All right, mate.
Very funny.
Thanks for changing the schedule today. Sorry about
All good. Thanks for getting up early.
No, it's all cool. I'm awake now. I'm wide awake. I'm going to have another coffee. I'm going to go and pick up my MG. Life's good.
Yeah, wow. You've changed.
All right. Thanks, mate.
All right. Cheers, mate. See ya.
All right, everyone. That was Steve coming in from Sydney. If you don't know who Steve is the co-host of this podcast, and he owns a 997 GT. He owns a 997 GT3, one of the most iconic and best 997s you can buy. I wish I had one, but I don't have as much money as Steve, unfortunately.
Hurry up, mate. Hurry up.
All right, everyone. That's it for today. Thanks for listening. Bye for now.